Remember what I said yesterday about that Bushroad needs to do something crazy if they want to make me to postpone the Kronos Command video again? Well, they revealed a right line on top of the new clan selection support. But don't worry, we're not going to postpone any videos anymore, because we're going to talk about everything in one video. So we're going to do things quickly. Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today was the Tuesday livestream reveal, so we knew that we were going to get the new Shadow Paneling cards for Clan Collection Volume 2. But we also knew that we would get the Link Joker cards earlier today, so we had our two clans that we're going to talk about today. But what we didn't know is that they would reveal some very beautiful design cards, but also a brand new ride line for Brandgate. Space Gredora got revealed, and the Meteor shower rain is coming for us. And let me tell you, this archetype, or should I say this ride line, is very interesting. And to not make this video any longer, let's jump straight into these cards to see what you can do. And we're going to start off with the clan collection sets, and then we're going to end off with Space Gredora's ride line and her mechanic. So first off, we're going to talk about the Link Joker cards, which were revealed before the live stream. And we start off with a grade 1, which is Prison Gate Star-vader Palladium. And Palladium has the effect auto. When rode upon, you may call this card to the rearguard circle. So it's a 3+1 that costs you a soul, but honestly you want to have this unit on your rearguard circle, so being able to ride it and then later get it on the rearguard circle is really good because of its second effect, which is auto rearguard circle. When your opponent's lock card is unlocked, cost counter +1 and retire this unit. Your opponent looks at the top card of their deck and puts it on the open rearguard circle as a locked card. This is an amazing skill for Chaos Breaker Dragon, because the original version of this card was basically, oh, something unlocks, now you can relock it. For Chaos Breaker Dragon, this doesn't really work because you retire the unlocked card, so there isn't anything on the board that you then can relock in most instances. So the fact that you then force your opponent to call a new card locked to the field from the top of your deck is actually really good and allows you to put more emphasis on the control aspect that Link Joker has with the lock mechanic. Now, if we move up to the grade 2, we see Star-vader Colony Maker, which has the skill auto. When a unit is placed on the vanguard circle or rearguard circle, cost soul +1 and discard a card from hand. Look at the 5 cards on top of your deck, choose up to 1 card with Star-vader in its card name from among them, call to the rearguard circle as rest, and shuffle your deck. If your opponent has a lock card, call it as stand. So this is basically somewhat of a tutor for the archetype because it's all Star-vader. Now, I'm personally not too excited about this card because of a couple of reasons. First off, there's a potential where you need to call it in rest, so you don't really get immediate value of. Now granted, if you do this on turn 3 and onwards, it's very much likely that you will have a card that is locked on your opponent's side of the field, so that wouldn't be too much of an issue. My main issue with this card is that it's not really a plus, because you need to discard to get something, and you don't have good consistency of what you're going to get because you also need to call to the field. So if you get one of your grade 3s, which you probably want to ride, that's not too ideal. But in some cases it doesn't really mind because all your grade 3s are also beaters on the rearguard circle. But honestly, I would much rather have liked it if this card didn't discard it, or then just maybe allowed you to just search your deck to get something. But sadly, that's not the case. You're probably still going to play this card just by the fact that it has a Star-vader name, which then makes the grade 1 from the previous support wave a lot better, as that means the on-hit pressure is also more consistent. But if we even get more support in the future with the Star-vader name, I can definitely see this card just being removed from the list. Now, for the final card, we've got the new grade 3 boss unit for Link Joker, or should I say sub-boss unit, because it's probably more of a supporter for Chaos, and we got Star-vader Infinite Zero Dragon. And Infinite Zero Dragon has the skill auto. When the unit is placed on the vanguard circle or is rode upon, cost counter +1 and discard a card from your hand. Choose one of your opponent's rearguards and lock it. If your damage zone has 4 or more cards, choose 1 each from your opponent's front row and back row instead of 1. So this is very similar to its original break ride skill, only now it also works on place, which is honestly actually pretty decent. Now counter +1 discard one to lock something isn't the greatest of value, but if you're able to just use the skill to lower the speed of the game and just stall and put the more control emphasis on the game. This is actually really interesting because Chaos Breaker Dragon is more of an oppressive type of card than actually a stall mechanic, where this feels more like a stall type of card, because you can also just play Infinite Zero Dragon on its own, as if you're at 4 damage, aka Limit Break, you can ride him on top of himself, and then for 2 counterplays and 2 discards, you can lock 2 columns, effectively. You can lock 4 cards, 2 in the back row, 2 in the front row, which can shut down your opponent's pressure for the entire turn, and can honestly be worth the 2 discards, because that can save you way more shield than the 2 cards you just discarded from your hand, which is honestly not that bad. And of course you can combine this with Chaos Breaker Dragon, because you can first ride him if you went first, because then using Chaos Breaker Dragon doesn't do all too much. And then the following turn you can ride Chaos Breaker Dragon on top of him, lock 1 or 2 cards, and then also lock another one with Chaos Breaker Dragon, and basically shut down your opponent's entire board, because you can triangle lock them almost with no problem, which is kind of ridiculous if you think about it, that we can already do that with Link Joker only after 2 support wave with only 6 cards. Yikes. On top of it, it also has another effect which makes it even better as a supporter for Chaos Breaker Dragon, which is Continuous Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. During your turn, this unit gets power plus 5k for each of your opponent's locked cards. So remember what I said about you can lock 2 entire columns for cards? Well, if you do that, this becomes a 33k beater, disregarding the force marker that this card had. Oh yeah, this card has a force marker unlike Chaos Breaker Dragon, so yeah, that's probably not going to be annoying to deal with, but this means it's going to be a big sizable beater, and then if we use Chaos Breaker Dragon, we can just call to the side, and it's also a very sizable beater. Don't forget, Chaos Breaker Dragon also has a similar skill like this. He gains an additional 10k power if you have a lock card. So Chaos Breaker Dragon is stronger than him, but Chaos Breaker Dragon is just capped at that plus 10k. This can actually become more than Chaos Breaker Dragon if we lock more cards from our opponent's field. So this can actually be a quite sizable beater, and this is the reason why Colony Maker is not as terrible right now, because all our grade 3s, we can just call them to the Rearguard Circle and they will become sizable beaters. So overall, the Link Joker support is actually pretty good. It's a good upgrade to Chaos Breaker Dragon, and I honestly do not want to see how strong this deck is going to be, because luck is the last thing I want to return in any format. But that said, we also got Shadow Paladin cards for the Revenger archetype, and it is looking pretty spicy, because first off we've got this grade 1, which is Dark Armor Revenger Renal, and Renal has the effect Auto Vanguard the Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks or attack is boosted, hits a Vanguard, look at the 3 cards on top of your deck, choose up to 1 card with Revenger discard name from among them, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So we've got this archetype searcher with the unhit pressure. It's basically the same thing that we saw with Star-Vader Claw Dragon last support wave, but now for the Revenger. Now this only checks top 3 instead of the usual top 5, but I think it's fine. There are quite a lot of targets you can hit. You can search itself, we have the new grade 2, we have also Raging Form with your Revenger, we've got Mordred, we got both Masquerades, there is even a crit trigger that has the Revenger name, so you can search out that if you want to. So overall, it's pretty decent for the early game to just plus all the cards you need, and you're going to need to get to all those cards as fast as possible to set up a powerful combo this archetype can provide. Now it also has another effect which is actually kind of interesting, which is Auto. When this unit is retired from the Rearguard Circle by your card's ability cost Soul Blast 1, your opponent chooses one of their rearguards and retire it. So basically your own self retires become into actual retire effects, only for the cost of a Soul Blast, which is not that bad. And there are actually some good ways to just retire this thing. We got Nullity Revenger Masquerade, the grade 2. Once we get our search, we need to retire something, so we can just hit him and then make that skill also turn into a retire on the opponent's side of the field. But of course, also the new Raging Form Dragon retires her own stuff, of course, spoiler alert. And that makes that card also have retire skills, which is honestly not that bad. So overall, I think this is definitely going to be an auto for include in a Revenger deck, and maybe if we get more support that is focused around this own retire, maybe this can be used as well. Now, if we move up to the grade 2, we've got somewhat similar to Colony Maker, but I think this is much better than Colony Maker, as we've got Dark Cloak Revenger Tar-2. And Tar-2 has the ability Auto, when its unit is placed on a Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle from hand, cost Soul Blast 1, search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or less card with the Revenger in its card name, call to the Rearguard Circle and shuffle your deck. At the end of the turn, retire this unit. So this is effectively a grade 1 surge for the archetype. The only targets that I can remember they got is the grade 1 that we just talked about, as well as the Revenger Masquerade grade 1, and potentially the crit trigger, but I don't think you want to call that one out unless you really need a target to sec off. Because yes, this skill states that at the end of turn you're going to retire them, but let's be honest, it's Shadow Paladin, they're never gonna make it till the end of the turn, so that's not really an issue. Unless it actually is going to be a thing and you just wanted to have a warm body on the board, you can just call the grade 1 we just talked about, because it will get retired by one of your own skills, thanks to the end ability of Tar 2, and it can still use its ability to pop something on your opponent's side of the board, so that might be a play in some scenarios. So overall, I think it is a fine card to just increase the overall card advantage, because you want to have as many cards on the board for your own sec ability, so this is great to just flood the board with more sacrifice targets. Now, talking about sacrifice targets, this is our main output of that, which is the brand new grade 3 boss unit for the Revenger archetype, and maybe for Shadow Paladin as a whole, as we've got Revenger Raging Form Dragon. And Raging Form Dragon has the effect, although when this unit is placed on a Vanguard circle, if your damage zone has 4 or more cards, aka Limit Break, cost Counterblast 1, search your deck for up to 1 grade 2 or less card with Revenger in its card name, call to the rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. So this can be either of the Masquerades, the grade 2 we just talked about, or the grade 1 we just talked about. It's basically a plus engine. Now keep in mind, calling Tar 2 with this effect doesn't really do anything, because her skill specifies called from hand. And there's a reason why they did that, because if they allowed that, I think Raging Form Dragon would be a bit too oppressive, because then you would get into some really weird shenanigans by the sheer fact of its second skill exists. Because its second skill is Auto and Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle this unit attacked, cost, retire 3 rearguards with Revenger in their card names, choose up to 1 grade 3 card with Revenger in its card name from your hand, and write it as stand. This means we can write him into himself or Mordred Phantom. Now, this is the reason why they probably put the restriction on Tar 2, because if Tar 2 could get a call off if she was called by a superior call effect, you could loop this for every grade 3 Raging Form Dragon you had and then end it off on a Mordred Phantom. Because what basically happens is that if you have a full board of Revengers and you have him as a Vanguard, you can attack with your Revenger rearguards, then you can attack with him. At the end of the battle, you can sec off 3 units. So you sec one of the front row units, one probably is booster and the booster of the Vanguard, and then you rewrite another copy of him from your hand. Now, you get a force marker, but his on-play skill will activate if you are at Limit Break, which means you can call another Revenger to the field, and because you have 2 Revengers here, and now a new Revenger here, that means you can attack with this Revenger rearguard, and then attack with the Vanguard, and then use its skill again because you have 3 sacrifice targets on the board, and write another Revenger grade 3 from your hand. That can be another copy of him, or that can be Mordred Phantom. If it's another copy of him, you can use his on-play skill again to call another Revenger to the field and have another rearguard swing, and then he swings again. If you kept count, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attacks. That's kind of crazy if you think about it. Now, of course, as you might have realized, to do that play, you need to have 3 Raging Forms in your hand. First to be the one that writes it, and then the other 2 cards from hand. But you have other options to combo off with this card, because it doesn't specify that it needs to write himself, just any grade 3 with Revenger in his card name. Premium players can go wild with this, because keep in mind, they have the stride that copies the Vanguard abilities of the hard card, so you can use the stride that then writes into this, and this is a whole can of worms that then opens up. But if we stay in V, you have Mordred Phantom, and Mordred Phantom actually allows you to also get kind of crazy multi-attacks, because you can have 2 Blaster Darks in the front row, 3 Revengers in the back row, and then attack with your Blaster Darks and everything, then attack with your Raging Form, then right into Mordred Phantom, attack with Mordred Phantom, stand the 2 Blaster Darks, and then swing again. So that's also 6 attacks Only it costs you 1 less counterblast to do that, but you filter less cards from your deck to do this, so maybe less chance on triggers. But still, 6 attacks is nothing to scoff at. And the following turn, you are on a Mordred Phantom, so you're gonna keep multi-attacking every single turn, which is also pretty good. But you can also do it the other way around, because you don't have to go in Raging Form Dragon as your first grade 3. You could just go into Mordred Phantom, just call your Blaster Darks and do your Revenger shenanigans to just stack up on a lot of force markers. And if your opponent didn't pay attention and they gave you the 4 of damage, you can go into Raging Form Dragon and just go ham. And that is kind of crazy. I think this Revenger deck has a lot of potential. So, yeah, Shadows do be looking kind of spicy. But do you know what's also looking kind of spicy? The new high rarity cards from the Clan Collection set. Because Bushiroad revealed the new Vanguard Secret Rares. And oh boy, do they look good. As we do have SPs for every single main grade 3 in this set. But also 8 of these special rarities. And for Clan Collection Volume 1, they showed these cards. Yeah, they gave us the Legion artwork for Seekers, but they also gave Different Fight his son in the best artwork as possible. And also they gave Death Boy Dragons probably to compensate for what they did with the skills, but that's here nor there. But this is just child's play. This is a warm-up, because for Clan Collection 2, they gave us these cards. Now, you might think to yourself, hold on a moment, there are supposed to be 4, right? Where's the third one? Well, the 4th one is this boy. Oh boy, this is so good. Look at this thing. It is freaking gorgeous. And I'm scared for my wallet because I probably have to get full copies. Well, to be honest, you're not gonna play it at main copies, but look at it! It is too beautiful. But excitement aside, these artworks and the way how they made it with the gold foiling and as well as the coloring and everything around it, they look sublime. To be fair, we haven't seen these cards in actual real life. The only one that we saw was the Revenger Raging Form variant, which looked really good, by the way. But next week they're gonna show the other ones, and I am scared for my life that I probably have to sell one of my kidneys to get these Chronos commands, because they are pretty spicy. One thing that's also really spicy is the brand new ride line for Brandgate, because we saw the first of the 3 brand new ride lines of the upcoming set Advance of the Intertwined Stars. So let's take a look at these new Space Gredora cards and see what this Meteor mechanic is going to bring to Vanguard. First off, we got their starter, which is Gravidia Dellen. Nothing really special. I like the artwork though. It's got this weird evil alien / xenomorphic thing going on, and you're gonna see that through the other artworks as well. Honestly, I'm digging this art style quite a lot. So just a generic starter, so let's move on to the rest of the cards. But before we dive into the ride lines themselves, we have to take a look at this Meteor card. This is where the entire archetype is gonna revolve around, so to understand what these skills actually do, we have to take a look at this one first. So this is a set order grade 1 that is called Neatness Meteor Shower, and its abilities are continuous. You may have up to 16 Neatness Meteor Showers in your deck. So this whole archetype is gonna play around this specific card, and to make this whole engine work, they allow you to play a buttload of these cards. Now keep in mind, you probably don't want to max out on this card, because if you play 16 of this card, your deck space is completely filled out, because you have 16 of these cards. Then including the 4 cards of your ride line is already 20 cards. Then the 16 triggers makes it 36. And don't forget, you also have your free persona rights, as you're going to need the persona right in this deck. So that means 39 out of your 50 card slots already filled. So you have only 11 slots left for your grade 1s, grade 2s, and who knows if you want to run a support in grade 3. That's a very tight deck space that you have right here. So maybe you don't want to max out on these cards, but who knows, maybe that might be the optimal play. So what does this card actually do? Well, it has auto. When this card is put into your order zone, you may soul charge 1. If it was put by your Vanguard's ability, you may draw a card. It's very important that you need to realize that it states you may, because at some point, deck out might be an issue with this deck, so making this optional is very much needed, because you might think to yourself, why don't want to get a draw if I play this card? There might be scenarios where you probably don't want to draw in the first place, so it's nice that this is an option on the card. Now, on top of it, it also has the effect Auto, when this card is put into your drop from your order zone, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So you might think to yourself, how does this work? Basically, your main grade 3 is the one that's allowing you to put these cards from the set order zone into the drop zone, which then allow you to retire something from your opponent's side of the field, which makes it a removal type of skill, which is honestly pretty nice. But to really understand everything about this card, let's take a look at the ride line so you can put everything into perspective. So first off, we've got the grade 1 of the ride line, which is Gravidia Wells, and she has the effect, Auto, when this unit is placed on the Vanguard circle, look at the 7 cards from the top of your deck, choose any number of Meteor cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand and shuffle your deck. So this can be a free +7. Because if you write this and all 7 cards are Meteors, you can add them all to your hand. So yeah, that's actually kind of crazy. So this is another reason why you might want to run a significant amount of Meteor cards just to make the skill any better. But in some instances, you don't really have to rely on it too much, but a free plus is still a free plus. Now, on top of it, also has a rearguard circle skill, which is going to be very important, which is act on rearguard circle once a turn. If your Vanguard is Gravidia Nordlinger, aka the main grade 3, cost Soul Blast 1, choose up to 2 Meteor cards from your hand, put them into your order zone, and this unit gets power plus 2k until the end of turn. Now, the plus 2k doesn't really matter. That's not why you want to play this effect. The main thing about this is that this allows you to put multiple Meteors directly into the order zone. Keep in mind, these Meteors are just like your typical orders, so you can play one every single turn. But this skill allows you to then put 2 extra on top of it, which allows you to put 3 Meteors in a single turn into your order zone. And 2 of those can potentially draw you into cards. So this skill can potentially be a Soul Blast 1, set up 2 Meteors, and draw into 2 cards. Which is not that bad, if I'm gonna be honest, because it's basically Pot of Greed while setting up your engine. Pretty good. But then if we move up to the grade 2, we see Gravidia Barringer, which has the skill Auto. When a unit is placed on the Vanguard circle or rearguard circle, if you have a Meteor in your order zone, cost Soul Blast 3, draw a card, and this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of turn. So this is the reason why the orders generate souls, so you can activate this skill to draw into more cards and potentially make it a solid beater as well. Overall, this skill is relatively self-explanatory because you can just play one of the meteors right on turn 1 as they're just grade 1s, and that immediately sets up for this card because you have your grade 0 and grade 1 in your soul. That's 2 soul. If you played 1 meteor from hand, that generates a 3rd soul. So the moment this thing enters the Vanguard circle, you can pay for the skill to draw an extra card and make it a 15k beater, which is honestly not that bad. But then it also has a skill Continuous Rearguard Circle. If your drop or order zone has a total of 5 or more set orders, this unit gets power plus 5k. Activate on the opponent's turn 2. So this can already be a 15k beater with a setup order zone without relying on the Soul Blast free skill. Now if you do that skill, then she becomes a 20k beater, which is honestly not bad. But the fact that she is also 15k during your opponent's turn can be nice to have at least a body on the board that's hard to remove, or at least a bit harder to remove. It's not easy for your opponent's rearguard to just slam into them without dedicating some skill or actual entire columns. But now we get to the big boss herself, as we have the new grade 3 for this ride line, which is Gravidia Nordlinger. And her effects are: Auto, when this unit is placed on the Vanguard circle, search your deck for up to 2 meteorite cards, put them into your order zone, and shuffle your deck. So when we ride her on the Vanguard circle, we effectively filter our deck for 2 cards, and then we draw 2 cards on top of it, because we grab 2 meteors from our deck, put them into the set order zone, their skill activates, and then we can draw into 2 new cards. So for free, we get 4 cards from our deck. That's actually really good. And if we Persona Road that turn, we get 5 cards from our deck, because we have to draw for Persona Ride, then the 2 filter from the 2 meteorites, and then draw 2 new cards from the additional effects of the meteors. This is the reason why that draw skill on the meteors needs to not be mandatory. Because if that was the case, deck out is going to be a real thing with this amount of drawing. Especially if we rode the grade 1 and we saw 7 meteors in the top 7. Your deck is going to be thin quite quickly. But now you might be wondering, what am I actually going to do with all these meteors? Well, that's where her second skill comes into play, because that's Auto and Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks, cost counter plus 1 and put 1 or more meteors from your order zone into the drop. Until the end of the battle, this unit gets power plus 15k. If you put 3 or more meteor cards in your drop for this cost, it's get critical plus 1. And if you put 5 or more, your trigger effects activate twice. This is the reason why in this deck you want to have that grade 1 on the Rigid Circle at all times, and you want to Persona ride every single time. Because you want to set up as many meteors as fast as possible, because just by putting one meteor from your hand every single turn is not fast enough to generate the value you want from this skill. You need to be able to accelerate those meteors, and with her ride skill, being able to put 2 extra, and with the grade 1 also put 2 more extra, you can effectively every single turn get 5 meteors in your order zone as long as you have 3 of those in your hand, which allows you to get insane value. Because for 1 counterblast, you not only get a 28k Vanguard that comes with double critical, that also doubles your triggers if you hit them. Keep in mind, the power doubles, but the effect as well. A heal can double heal as long as your damage is high enough. A draw gives you 2 cards, but I don't think you want to run draws in this deck. A front is double front, and the overtrigger is double the overtrigger. So you draw a card, you give 100 million power, and then you double every power and critical of all your units. Keep in mind, your Vanguard is already a double critical, so it becomes 4 crit. But after you've done that, you do it again. So you draw another card, you give another unit 100 million power, and then you double all your front units with another double critical and double power. That means your Vanguard is now going to swing for 8 crits. And your rearguards are going to be 4 crit if they didn't have an inherent extra critical. Yeah! Oh, and one small detail. You also destroyed your entire opponent's board at the same time. Because, don't forget, those meteors had the effect, if they are sent from the order zone to the drop, you can snipe one of your opponents out of the field. So for 1 counterblast, you field nuke, you get a crit, you get a beefy girl, and potentially double triggers. Yeah, this deck is kind of cracked. Now, that said, I want to emphasize on a very important aspect of this deck. This deck might lack some cards, in the sense that very key card reliant. If you do not get access to the grade 1, and you cannot Persona ride consistently, setting up your order zone can be a problem. Now, that said, you don't always have to go for the max skill of getting 5 meteors into your drop. I wouldn't recommend doing something like that if your opponent has only 1 rearguard, because you're wasting a lot of potential value there. And maybe getting double trigger is nice and all, but if you hit no triggers, what did you accomplish? You just wasted a lot of potential resource. So you need to be very careful, as this deck right now, without any support cards known so far, feels a bit clunky and problematic, because yes, you can run 10, 12, 15, 16 of these meteors, but what if you draw into all of them and see no actual units? These meteors, if I remember correctly, have no shield value, which means this deck has very low shield value, very low offensive value, because you have not a lot of grade 1s and grade 2s to work with, which means it's very reliant on this effect. Now, this can go into 2 ways. This can mean that this deck is going to be very explosive on turn 3 and you want to win on that turn, and if you do not, you're probably gonna lose. Or it's gonna spin the other way around and it's gonna be a very control heavy archetype, in the fact that you're going to use your meteors very specific and very resourceful in just using it to keep bombarding your opponents out of the field, and use it mainly as a retire option. Because that's definitely a possibility. And then the critical, the power, and potentially the drive checks are going to be an extra, the cherry on top of what you actually are trying to do here. This can completely change immediately with the next support card for this ride line. We know nothing besides this. Overall, the mechanic itself and how it looks, I am so for this. This looks very interesting and actually a lot of fun. But the support around it is probably gonna be the make or break for this ride line. So I'm very hopeful that Bushiroad makes the correct support cards to not make this stuff too broken, but also at least playable enough that it can somewhat compete in the current environment. I'm not saying it needs to be top tier, but at least make it somewhere in the middle at bare minimum. And that also concludes everything that we need to talk about today. It's been a while that we had a long video like this. I don't know how much I'm gonna cut off of the actual video, but there was a lot to go over. We got 2 clans, we got insane amount of shiny reveals, as well as another ride line with a brand new mechanic for Brandgate. Honestly, a lot to think about. Overall, I'm very, very happy with these reveals. Like, everything has been basically a banger so far. And set 3, Advance of the Intertwined Stars, they got me there right now. I am all for that set. I am very excited for what's going to bring for the next new 2 ride lines, as well as what's going to be on the horizon for Verena. But with that said, I am very curious of what you guys think of these new cards. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of the new cards for V-Clan collection, as well as the new ride line. And of course, what's your favorite new Vanguard Secret Rare, and why is it Kronos Command Dragon? Let me know in the comments section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely Patreons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap. See you guys in the next one!